Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into something, well, pretty wild. We're calling this deep dive the universal shared dreamscape. And yeah, it's as mind-bending as it sounds.
It really is. We'll be exploring this concept, this thought experiment, really digging into all the what ifs and implications. And trust me, it gets pretty fascinating.
I think anyone listening is already hooked by the title alone. So let's lay it out. What's the core concept here? What kind of sources have we been digging through?
Well, the core idea is this.
Yeah.
Every night, when we sleep, when all beings capable of dreaming doze off, the thought experiment proposes that our consciousnesses might actually merge. Yeah, all of us, humans, animals, maybe even other life forms we haven't considered, all linking up in this one massive, constantly shifting dream state.
Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty, what kind of sources is this based on? I mean, is this hard science, philosophy, speculation?
It's mostly drawn from a conceptual exploration, really. We've been looking at excerpts from a piece called The Universal Shared Dreamscape, an expanded thought experiment. It dives deep into the possibilities, drawing from various fields, from psychology and neuroscience to philosophy, and even a touch of quantum physics.
All right, so it's a thought experiment, not necessarily established science, but that's what makes it so interesting for this deep dive.
Right.
We can explore the what-ifs and see where it takes us.
Exactly. We're not claiming this as proven fact, but it's a framework for asking some truly thought-provoking questions. And the implications, well, they could change how we see ourselves in the world around us, even if it's all just a really compelling metaphor.
Okay, so let's get to the heart of it. This idea of all our consciousnesses merging each night into this dreamscape, this universal, constantly shifting dream. How? What's the proposed mechanism here? Because that's a pretty huge leap.
Yeah, and the sources we're looking at are pretty upfront about the fact that the how is a big mystery. They throw out some possibilities, like some kind of unknown energy field, or even a connection related to quantum entanglement.
Okay, quantum entanglement. That's one of those terms that makes my brain go a little fuzzy. For those of us who don't have a PhD in physics, can you give us the super simplified layman's terms explanation of what that even implies in this context?
Basically, think of it as a kind of connection that goes beyond our normal understanding of space and time, as if separate things, in this case minds or consciousnesses, could be linked in a way that lets them share a state instantaneously, no matter how far apart they are physically. It's wild stuff, but again, the thought experiment doesn't rely on us knowing exactly how it works, which lets us focus on the what if of it all.
And here's a really crucial point, right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't actually remember any of this. It's not like we'd wake up and be like, hey, remember last night, the dreamscape when...
Exactly. The lack of conscious recall is actually key to making this idea even remotely plausible. Imagine if we all woke up remembering a shared dream every single day. The sheer volume of information, the emotions, it would be overwhelming. Probably debilitating.
Yeah, I can see that. So it's more like this subtle underlying thing, maybe a feeling, a fleeting image, a sudden insight that you can't quite place, like an echo from somewhere you can't quite remember.
It's almost like the dreamscape operates on a different level of awareness, one that our everyday consciousness isn't meant to directly access or remember, but the influence, the feeling that might linger.
All right, so we've got this nightly merging of minds, this vast, constantly shifting dreamscape that we don't consciously remember. What's actually happening in there? What's it like?
The material we've been looking at describes it as a collective creation. It's not one person's dream, not even a bunch of separate dreams happening side by side. It's more like all our subconscious thoughts, emotions, fears, hopes, even recent experiences, all blending together. It's not a director's cut, but more like a massive, ever-evolving improvisation with billions of contributors.
So if the whole planet's plugged into this thing, wouldn't it just be pure chaos? Like billions of people's anxieties, dreams, desires, all clashing?
You'd think so, right? But the thought experiment proposes this idea of dynamic stability. It suggests that there might be these, well, stabilizing forces within the dreamscape that prevent it from dissolving into complete anarchy.
What kind of forces? Like dream police making sure everyone's subconscious is playing nicely?
Not quite. It's more like imagining there are these fundamental patterns, maybe reflecting basic survival instincts or universal thought patterns, that even amidst the chaos, create a kind of underlying order. Like in nature, you have individual organisms doing their thing, but there are also ecosystems, food chains, these broader patterns that keep things relatively stable, even with constant change.
Okay, so it's dynamic, it's changing, but not complete chaos. What else? What kind of things are happening in this dreamscape?
Well, the material suggests that it's not a literal replay of our day. It's not like we're all watching a dream version of the news together. It's more symbolic, a language of metaphors. Your personal struggle to achieve a goal might appear as a challenging climb up a mountain, while for someone else, it's navigating a dense, tangled forest. But somehow, at a subconscious level, there's this shared understanding of the underlying emotion, the struggle, the desire.
So even though the imagery is personal,
Yeah.
there's this collective meaning-making happening beneath the surface. That's wild.
It really is, and it's constantly evolving, too. Think about it. You have billions of minds interacting, responding to each other's symbolic language, creating this ever-shifting narrative. It's like a massive collaborative art project, but in the realm of the subconscious.
Okay, so we've got this shared dream world, dynamic but stable, communicating through symbols, and we don't remember any of it. So what? Why should any of this matter to us in our waking lives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's where the thought experiment gets really intriguing. The idea is that even though we don't consciously remember the specifics, the shared dreamscape might subtly influence our waking reality.
Give me an example. How could something we don't even remember affect us?
Imagine there's a period of relative peace and harmony within the dreamscape. Could that translate to a subtle increase in feelings of interconnectedness and well-being in the waking world? Or, conversely, if there's widespread fear or anxiety in the collective dream, could that manifest as a vague sense of unease, a feeling that something's not quite right, even if we can't pinpoint why?
So it's like this background hum of collective emotion that we're all tuned into, whether we realize it or not. It's shaping the overall vibe, even if we're not aware of the source.
Exactly. And it makes you think about things like societal shifts, trends, even global events in a whole new light. Are there subconscious collective forces at play that we're not even acknowledging?
It's a pretty radical idea.
I
And the sources go even further, right? They suggest that this shared dreamscape could have all sorts of real-world implications.
Oh, absolutely. For one, they explore the possibility that it could be a source of artistic inspiration and cultural trends. Think about it. If we're all tapping into this wellspring of shared symbolism and archetypes, it's not surprising that similar themes and motifs pop up in art, myths, and legends across cultures and throughout history.
So those recurring stories of heroes, journeys, battles between good and evil, maybe those aren't just coincidences, but echoes of something deeper, something we're all unconsciously processing together.
It's a fascinating possibility. And what about scientific discovery? Could those aha moments, the breakthroughs that seem to come out of nowhere, actually be the result of subconscious processing happening in this vast, interconnected dreamscape?
Like our brains are working on problems overnight, bouncing ideas off each other without us even knowing. It's like crowdsourcing solutions, but on a subconscious global scale.
Precisely. And the implications for empathy and relationships are huge, too. Imagine if those inexplicable connections we feel with certain people, that sense of knowing someone deeply, or even the idea of soulmates, have roots in shared experiences or roles within this dreamscape.
So it's not just about shared emotions, but about a deeper level of unconscious understanding and connection forged through these nightly encounters in the dream world. That's pretty powerful.
And don't forget the potential connection to environmental awareness. What if our collective subconscious is actually acutely attuned to the health of the planet, picking up on subtle signals that our conscious minds miss? It could explain that pervasive sense of unease about the environment or those vivid dreams of ecological disaster that many people report.
So it's like the planet itself is communicating with us through this shared dream space, trying to get our attention on a level we can't ignore. That's pretty profound.
It really is. And the thought experiment even touches on mental health. Could disruptions in this shared dreamscape, maybe caused by widespread trauma or anxiety, actually contribute to global spikes in mental health issues? Or, conversely, could periods of relative peace and harmony within the dreamscape lead to a collective sense of well-being?
So our individual mental states aren't just personal matters, but potentially interconnected with the overall health of this collective dream space. It makes you rethink what it means to be an individual within a larger whole.
Absolutely. And that brings us to some of the really big questions, the challenges that the thought experiment acknowledges. For instance, are we all equal participants in this dreamscape? Or could there be some individuals who, for whatever reason, have a stronger influence, maybe even acting as something like dream weavers who shape the experience for others?
That's a fascinating idea. It makes you wonder what might make someone a more powerful dream weaver. Is it the intensity of their emotions, their connection to certain archetypes, something else entirely?
It's a mystery. And then there's the question of interaction. Could there be, even if incredibly rare and fleeting, moments of shared lucidity within the dreamscape? Or could something like global meditation or a collective focus on a particular issue in the waking world actually have a measurable effect on the dream's content or emotional tone?
It's like, even if we don't consciously remember it, could we be subtly collaborating, co-creating this shared dream experience in ways we don't fully grasp?
The possibilities are mind-boggling. And of course, there's that big looming question: why the amnesia? Why don't we remember any of this? Is it simply too much information for our waking minds to handle? Or is there a deeper reason, maybe a protective mechanism, to preserve our sense of individual identity and allow us to function in the world without being overwhelmed by the sheer scope of this collective subconscious experience?
It makes sense. It's like we need that separation, that filter, to be able to navigate our daily lives. But then it makes those fleeting feelings, those sudden insights that we can't quite place, all the more intriguing. Are those glimpses into something far vaster than we realize?
It definitely leaves you wondering, and there's another big challenge. How does this dreamscape handle conflict? With billions of individuals, all with their own unique desires, fears, beliefs, how does it all get woven together? Is there a dominant narrative that emerges, or is it just this constant flux, a chaotic dance of competing impulses?
It's like trying to imagine a symphony composed by billions of musicians, all playing different instruments, different melodies. How does it not just become noise?
The thought experiment suggests that maybe there are these core human experiences, these fundamental emotional states that resonate across the collective, creating temporary points of coherence, themes that emerge and then dissolve as new experiences and emotions flood in. It's a constant process of negotiation and emergence, never static, always evolving.
All right, so we've explored this idea of a universal shared dreamscape, this nightly merging of minds into a vast, ever-changing dream world that we don't consciously remember, but that might be subtly shaping our waking reality in all sorts of ways. It's a lot to take in. So I'm curious, what stands out to you, listener? How does this concept challenge your understanding of what it means to be an individual, a part of a collective, a being in this world?
Does it make you question the boundaries we draw between ourselves and others, between our inner world and the world around us? Does it make you wonder if we're more interconnected, more intertwined than we typically acknowledge?
And even if this specific idea of a shared dreamscape isn't literally true, could it still be a powerful metaphor for a deeper interconnectedness that we haven't fully grasped yet?
The idea that we might be participating in something far grander, far more intricate than we realize, even without conscious awareness, is certainly a humbling thought.
So if something like this were happening, how would we even begin to study it? What kind of evidence could we look for in our waking world that might point to this kind of shared subconscious activity?
That's the challenge, isn't it? It's not like we can just hook everyone up to a dream measuring machine. We'd have to get creative. Maybe look for recurring patterns in dream imagery across cultures and time periods, unexplained surges in collective emotions, subtle correlations between global events, and shifts in art or cultural trends.
It would be like piecing together a puzzle with most of the pieces missing, relying on hints and echoes to see the bigger picture.
Exactly. And then there's the big so what question. If we could somehow prove this was happening, could that knowledge actually help us? Could it offer new ways to address global challenges, foster greater empathy, maybe even approach mental health on a collective scale?
It's a hopeful thought. If we understand this interconnectedness, even if it's happening on a level we don't fully grasp, could we learn to harness it, to create positive change, to foster well-being on a global scale?
It's a lot to ponder, but that's the beauty of a good thought experiment, isn't it? It pushes us beyond the boundaries of what we think we know, opens up new possibilities, and makes us question everything.
And maybe, just maybe, it makes us look at our own dreams a little differently. Perhaps they're not just random firings in our brains, but glimpses into something far vaster, far more interconnected than we ever imagined.
So keep those dreams in mind, and the next time you feel a sudden wave of emotion, a flash of insight you can't quite place, ask yourself, could it be an echo from the universal shared dreamscape?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into a truly mind-bending concept. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep dreaming. Who knows what we'll uncover together?